Female Pelvic Nervous System. Another laparoscopic procedure that might cause damage to pelvic innervations is operative laparoscopy in deep pelvic endometriosis, 16. This is a condition that often gives general symptoms, such as chronic pelvic pain, dyspareunia, dysmenorrhea, menstrual flow alterations, and sterility. The treatment of the deep infiltrating endometriosis is essentially surgical, either laparotomic or laparoscopic, although these procedures can be performed only in few surgically experienced centers. The latter endoscopic approach offers a number of advantages to the surgeon if compared to the laparotomic approach, due to the enhanced vision of the surgical field, with a large magnification of the endoscopic anatomy that enables detection the thin and delicate nervous structures to be preserved during the preparation of the surgical areas to be excised. A complete knowledge of the pelvic anatomy 19 and the experience of the endoscopist who uses laparoscopic instrumentation are all advantages needed to eradicate pathological features infiltrating the pelvic and retroperitoneal spaces. 20. Should the posterior sacrum uterine wall be affected, it will often be necessary to resort to excision during operative laparoscopy in deep pelvic endometriosis. The preparation of the posterior parametrium, with its nerve fibers which embraces the wall of the sacrouterine ligaments, often comes after a preventive exposure of the ureters of the retroperitoneum. After opening the retroperitoneal space, the ureter is often accurately isolated and separated, with an excision running superiorly to the large ligament and medially from the medial wall of the pelvic peritoneum of Douglas. The ureter should always be separated from the surrounding structures it goes across, together with the uterine artery, by means of a careful dissection of the tissues. Another access in pararectal spaces is possible by stretching medially to the posterior parametrium. This part of the parametria is usually quite delicate. If there is no endometriosis, the posterior parametrium, enveloping the wall of sacrum uterine ligaments, may be easily divided into two portions, namely the medial and the lateral portions, the former representing the ligament fibers and the latter the hypogastric nerve fibers. Moreover, if endometrial nodules and scars affect these structures, the resection could become exceptionally difficult with the resection of the hypogastric nerve. Should this incidence occur bilaterally, there will usually be urine loss as well as cervical hypoesthesia, since the hypogastric nerve originating in the upper hypogastric plexus contains also this region's sensitive fibers. Resecting such fibers might explain why there is less postoperative pain or the minor pain due to the non-excision of the endometriotic nodules. Nevertheless, the total loss of vesical sensitivity seldom occurs, especially due to the fact that some of the sensitive fibers run along the sympathetic splanchnic nerves, which, with the resection of the posterior parameters, are not involved. It is worth mentioning that the resection of the posterior parametria and the simultaneous accidental resection of the hypogastric nerve determine the loss of vaginal lubrication during intercourse as a consequence of the resection of sympathetic fibers. 25. In extensive laparoscopic procedures, when the entire rectum is involved, in case of deep infiltrating endometriosis, also the portion of intestine affected will be resected. More nervous fibers might be damaged during surgery, since this procedure requires a complete mobilization of the rectum from the pelvic floor and, dorsally, from the promontory and the sacrum. The endoscopic procedure usually begins with the opening of the pararectal peritoneum and subsequently with the wide dissection of the pararectal space. The massive dissection of the tissues affected might facilitate damage to sympathetic fibers stemming from the sympathetic trunk at the level of the coccyx to be anatomized with the lower hypogastric plexus, between the hypogastric nervous fibers cranially and the splanchnic nerves caudally. Should this incident occur, the vesical and rectal sensitivity might be affected, mainly as a loss of the sensation of vesical filling, if the dissection requires further preparation of the tissues of the hypogastric sacral fascia and the extension laterally up to the pelvic wall. The possible damage caused to the nervous fibers of S3 and S4 will determine vesical failure. This will be expressed with a hypotonic bladder and the impossible spontaneous micturition taught 27. The sacral roots originating in S3 and S4 provide fibers that shape also the pudendal nerve, which innervates the anal and the urethral sphincter. Damage to such fibers might seriously affect the functionality of the sphincter. The damage to the hypogastric plexus might lead, respectively, to the extension of the damage to the plexus, namely the hypoesthesia of the vaginal sheath, the loss of the sensation of vesicle and rectal filling, to the vesical atonia. The damage of 2-3 centimeters that runs superior to the plexus determines the hypoesthesia of the cervix and of the dorsal vaginal sheath. Another 1-2 centimeters of further damage might lead to the loss of the rectal and vesical filling sensation. Moreover, the damage of further 3 centimeters caudally to the Douglas pouch could lead to rectal and vesical atonia. Latest technological advances have revolutionized the realm of patient care and led to remarkable changes in the nature of anatomical knowledge required by a clinician. It has therefore become necessary to review teaching strategies to ensure that these newly desired learning outcomes are addressed. With the advent of modern surgical techniques and operative armamentarium, as laparoscopy or robotics, the nature of living anatomy required for a medical student has changed immensely. There has also been an increasing tendency to replace the hours of dissection with prosected specimens, anatomical models, and simulated procedures as a result of the dearth of conventional learning resources, including cadaveric material, and the reduction in time allotted to anatomy teaching. It has been suggested that this reduced attention to anatomy has resulted in a situation in many medical schools where undergraduate education in anatomy is below the minimum necessary for safe medical practice. The changing trends in modern gynecological surgery indicate a sharp decrease in percentage of abdominal and vaginal hysterectomies and increasing numbers of laparoscopic and robotic procedures. For entry into these spaces and maneuvers to circumvent anatomic pitfalls unique to each region, laparoscopic and robotic surgical techniques need to be always performed during these minimally invasive approaches. So, a great emphasis needs to be placed on vascular abdominal pelvic tree, and especially on the course of hypogastric artery and its 2 branches. As mentioned above, it is difficult to foresee to what extent damage to the pelvic nerves correlated to a gynecological laparoscopy involving the retroperitoneal pelvic space may influence the pelvic sensitivity and innervations, which entails the normal processes of sexual intercourse, micturition, and defecation. In addition, at the beginning of each advanced laparoscopy, it is mandatory to review the course of the ureter through the retroperitoneum, as well as common sites and types of ureteral injury, since it is still one of the most common injuries in gynecologic surgery. Injuries typically occur at the pelvic brim and the area where the uterine artery crosses over the ureter. Finally, another problem has not been tackled to date, namely the association between patients treated laparoscopically for retroperitoneal conditions and delivery mode. In recent years, the number of operative laparoscopies involving retroperitoneal spaces has increased considerably, but the link between nerve sparing and delivery has not yet been established. The percentage of cesarean sections after these surgery procedures has never been calculated, neither after some radical pelvic surgeries nor on pregnancies occurred after these procedures. Some laparoscopic procedures are becoming more frequent in everyday endoscopic surgery, and in near future we might expect further studies to come out, offering data on the analysis of lymph-vascular complications, nerve damages, and delivery outcome after advanced retroperitoneal laparoscopy.